The silent battlefield disguised as a casual conversation. It starts with something harmless: where to eat, what to watch, why the credit card bill looks like it survived a hurricane. You walk in calm, logical, ready to solve a simple problem. 15 minutes later, you're standing in emotional wreckage, apologizing for things you didn't do, defending yourself against ghosts from 2019, and wondering how pizza or sushi turned into a referendum on your entire worth as a partner. It's disorienting. You came armed with reason, but you're hit with emotion. You brought clarity, but she brought chaos. You're playing chess. She's spiking volleyballs. And by the time you realize you're not even in the same game, it's too late. You're knee-deep in confusion, guilt, and self-doubt, wondering how a logical man lost a war that never had rules in the first place. But here's the brutal truth. You didn't lose the argument. You never had a chance to win it. Let me explain why this happens. When most men argue, they think they're entering a fair match. Two sides exchanging ideas, looking for truth, meeting halfway. But in many relationships, you're not debating ideas. You're stepping into an emotional storm where the rules change every second and logic doesn't count for much. You think you're presenting a case. She thinks you're revealing your heart. You're trying to fix a problem. She's trying to feel understood. Somewhere between your first sentence and her first sigh, you've stopped speaking the same language. Here's what I see every week in my office. A guy comes in, completely drained, trying to figure out how a simple discussion turned into a meltdown. He tells me about his partner wanting a new couch, so he does what makes sense. He researches prices, measures the space, builds a spreadsheet of options. He's thinking efficiency, teamwork, solution. She sees the list and suddenly tears up. You don't care about making our home beautiful. He shows her the spreadsheet to prove he cares. She cries harder. Everything is just numbers to you. He's stunned, holding evidence of his effort, while she's breaking down because it doesn't feel like love. They're not fighting about furniture. They're fighting about validation. He's trying to solve. She's trying to be seen. And both walk away thinking the other just doesn't get it. This is the real tragedy. They're having two completely different conversations. To him, it's a question of facts, budget, practicality. To her, it's a question of emotion, meaning, connection. By the time he realizes that, it's already gone off the rails. What he thought was a logic problem turned into an emotional puzzle with invisible rules. And when he finally gives up, she believes she won because he apologized, but he only did it to stop the chaos. That's not a win. That's emotional exhaustion disguised as resolution. Men tell me they feel trapped in these moments, like being asked to play chess against someone who's spiking volleyballs across the board. You can't win a game when you don't even agree on the rules. You raise a point calmly. You're cold and detached. You show emotion. You're scary, or just like her father. You walk away. You're abandoning her. You stay. You're attacking. Every move is wrong. It's not an argument anymore. It's a trap disguised as conversation. The craziest part is most men don't even notice the moment the switch happens, when facts stop mattering and feelings take over. You think you're still talking about bills or dinner plans, but the real discussion moved somewhere else 10 minutes ago. Suddenly, you're not explaining numbers. You're defending your character. You're not arguing about dinner. You're arguing about whether you care. And the harder you try to be logical, the guiltier you look. One of my clients described it perfectly. He said, "It's like I'm speaking English, and she's hearing Portuguese jimat, then responding in Mandarin." Both sides get louder, frustrated that the other isn't understanding, but they're not even on the same wavelength. And that mismatch destroys connection faster than anything else. Society doesn't help either. It gives people different emotional licenses. A man who raises his voice is called aggressive, dangerous, in need of anger management. A woman who screams, slams doors, or cries in public is called passionate or sensitive. One is told to calm down. The other is told to express herself. If a man breaks down, he's unstable. If a woman does, she's authentic. Same behavior, completely different judgment. These double standards aren't just unfair. They make honest communication impossible. So what happens? Men start walking on eggshells. They learn to stay calm no matter what. They suppress their reactions to avoid being labeled angry or cruel. They try to be the emotional adult every time things blow up. But living like that slowly kills a relationship. Because once you become the permanent peacekeeper, you stop being a partner. You start becoming a parent. And that's when resentment sets in. You're not connecting anymore. You're managing. You're not talking. You're de-escalating. You're not being heard. You're being handled. The woman thinks she's fighting for closeness. The man feels like he's being punished for trying to communicate. Both are exhausted. Both misunderstood. Both losing respect for each other. This mismatch of emotional and logical energy creates a power imbalance nobody talks about. After these arguments, she feels victorious because he apologized. He feels defeated because logic didn't matter. But nobody actually won. He didn't give in because she was right. He gave in because continuing meant drowning in emotional noise, and she didn't win his heart. She won his silence. That's not connection. That's quiet resentment dressed as peace. The sad part? Most couples think this pattern is normal. They believe this is just how relationships work, that endless emotional confusion is part of love. But it's not. It's a sign that both are playing different emotional games without realizing it. Men often compete directly. They fight, they argue, they shake hands after. Women often compete indirectly, through tone, influence, social pressure. When those two systems collide in a relationship, the result isn't balance, it's chaos. And the cost of that chaos isn't just another argument. It's the slow erosion of admiration. Every time a man feels trapped in an unwinnable emotional maze, he loses a little respect. Every time a woman feels unseen or invalidated, she loses a little trust. Bit by bit, both chip away at the foundation that once made them love each other. By the end of it, nobody's keeping score anymore. They're just surviving conversations, avoiding landmines, and praying the next one won't explode. And that's how relationships die, not from betrayal, but from exhaustion. That's the quiet truth nobody tells you about arguing in love. It's not that one side is smarter, colder, or more emotional. It's that most of us are fighting for completely different currencies. Logic on one side, feelings on the other. And until both realize that, every discussion will just be another battle that leaves both people losing a little more of themselves. Emotional manipulation through vulnerability. That's the nuclear weapon in modern arguments. When logic starts winning, emotion detonates. 1 minute, you're calmly explaining a point. The next, she's in tears talking about her childhood, her anxiety, her trauma. And suddenly, you're no longer debating. You're defending your soul. The conversation about dishes or spending money has shapeshifted into a moral trial about whether you're a good person. And you're left standing there, stunned, comforting someone who just destroyed your argument, not because she was right, but because she cried first. One guy once told me his girlfriend would literally curl up in a ball during arguments, shaking and silent. Every time he saw her like that, he'd immediately stop talking, comfort her, and apologize for upsetting her. Later, he realized something terrifying. It only happened when she was clearly wrong. It wasn't genuine pain. It was tactical vulnerability. That moment broke him because he realized logic had no place left to stand. If he continued to talk, he'd look like a monster. If he stopped, she won. Either way, he lost. But here's where the cycle really destroys people. You think you're solving a problem. She thinks you're questioning her value in the relationship. You're focused on fixing what went wrong. She's focused on how it feels that something went wrong in the first place. You think you've resolved it because you found a solution. She walks away feeling unheard because the emotion underneath was never touched. You both speak English, but it might as well be two different languages. When you say, "Let's figure out the holiday schedule," you mean travel dates and logistics. She hears, "Let's measure how much you value my family compared to yours." You're planning flights. She's analyzing your loyalty. You're talking about calendars. She's hearing commitment. That's why it explodes, because neither of you is actually talking about the same thing. And this isn't random. It's programmed. From childhood, men are taught to compete directly. State your case, take your hit, shake hands, move on. Women are taught to compete indirectly, through tone, emotion, influence, and intuition. By the time adulthood hits, these become invisible operating systems. You think you're running a software called logic. She's running one called emotion. And when the two try to connect, everything crashes. So when she says, "You never help around the house," what she really means is, "I don't feel appreciated." When you respond, "That's not true. I took out the trash. I fixed the faucet. I folded the laundry." You're listing data points. She's expressing emotion. Both of you are right. And both of you are completely missing each other. It's not malice. It's misalignment. Two people playing different games, wondering why nobody's winning. The result is predictable. Exhaustion. Not from hate, not from betrayal, but from the constant need to translate. You get tired of everything turning into emotional warfare. She gets tired of feeling like you don't care. You're both trying, but in different languages, and love dies in the space between translation errors. Real strength isn't in winning these arguments. It's in refusing to play them the wrong way. Some people think emotional dominance equals power. Whoever cries, yells, or collapses first controls the field. But that's not strength. Real strength is staying calm when someone's trying to provoke you. It's listening without surrendering. It's recognizing that sometimes the smartest move isn't to counterattack, but to walk away. I've seen countless men who win every argument by apologizing, withdrawing, shutting down. And they still lose their relationships. Because what they actually did was teach their partner that emotion beats logic every time. Over time, they stop speaking honestly. They stop initiating conversations. They stop showing up. They become ghosts in their own homes, silent, polite, disconnected. And she wonders why she no longer feels loved. That's the male dilemma. Damned if you do, weak if you don't. Stand your ground, and you're cold, harsh, or toxic. Bend, and you're spineless, unmasculine, easy to guilt. try to meet in the middle and you're indecisive. The only move that seems safe is silence, but silence kills connection faster than any fight ever could. A client once told me, if I match her energy, I'm scary. If I stay calm, I'm condescending. If I walk away, I'm heartless. If I engage, I'm attacking. No matter what I do, I'm the villain. And he wasn't wrong. That's what happens when emotional logic replaces rational discussion. There's no path to peace, only performance. The solution isn't to argue better. It's to stop arguing entirely, not to avoid communication, but to change how you approach it. When she says, "You don't care about me," don't start listing all the things you did to prove you do. Translate it. She's really saying, "I feel disconnected right now." Respond to that emotion, not her words. That's emotional Aikido, redirecting force instead of fighting it. You never listen doesn't mean you literally never listen. It means, "I don't feel heard right now." You always do this doesn't mean always. It means, "This hurts." Respond to the feeling underneath, not the exaggeration on the surface. The point isn't to win, it's to understand. Here's how this plays out in real life. She says, "You care more about your phone than me." Your instinct is to defend. "That's not true, I barely checked it today." But what she's really saying is, "I feel ignored." If you skip the emotion and go straight to logic, the conversation will burn. But if you answer the feeling, "You're right, I've been distracted, let's do something together," you just turned an argument into connection. Some people need to talk their feelings out loud before they even know what they're feeling. They're not attacking you, they're processing. Your job isn't to take every statement personally, it's to listen until the real concern surfaces. Think of it like emotional ping pong. You don't smash the ball back, you let it bounce until it slows down. The typical argument cycle always looks the same. A small issue arises, emotions spike, logic disappears, personal attacks begin. Someone wins through exhaustion, nothing gets solved, resentment quietly multiplies. The next fight starts with double interest. To break that pattern, you can't fight harder. You have to stop fighting altogether, not in silence, but in awareness. Refuse to play the emotional game by its chaotic rules. Stay steady. Validate before you solve. Listen before you fix. When she pushes with emotion, don't push back. Absorb. Translate. Redirect. That's how you stop losing wars you never wanted to fight in the first place. When every discussion turns into an argument, it's not a relationship anymore. It's a hostage situation where both of you are chained to the same problem and keep taking turns being the captor. Healthy couples argue, but they resolve. Unhealthy ones keep looping the same scene until it becomes their whole story. If you've ever found yourself saying, "Didn't we already talk about this?" You're not solving problems anymore. You're rehearsing pain. Some people don't actually want resolution. They want the emotional adrenaline that comes with chaos. For them, the argument isn't the problem, it's the fix. The raised voices, the crying, the storm followed by the passionate makeup. It's not dysfunction, it's their version of connection. They feel most alive when there's conflict. But if you're wired for peace and they're wired for emotional turbulence, no amount of communication skills will save you. You can't out-calm someone who needs chaos to feel loved. I've seen it over and over again. Some partners are perfectly capable of rational communication at work, with friends, with family. But the moment they're home, it's emotional warfare. That's not lack of control, it's strategy. They know when and where they can unleash chaos without consequence. At work, emotion costs them reputation. In a relationship, it earns them control. Logic doesn't motivate them. Emotion does. Modern culture makes this worse by preaching that all feelings are valid. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Feelings are real, but they're not always accurate. Your feeling that the sky is green doesn't make it green. Your feeling that someone hurt you doesn't automatically mean they did. We've raised generations to treat emotions as reality instead of signals. And when feelings become facts, the truth stops mattering. This confusion breeds exhaustion, the silent killer of most relationships. It's not betrayal that ends things. It's fatigue. It's that slow dread when you know bringing up anything, from bills to dinner, will turn into a 3-hour emotional marathon. It's when you start choosing silence over honesty, because peace, even fake peace, feels better than another blow-up. That's when communication dies, and the relationship starts rotting quietly from the inside out. Then there's the victim dynamic, the most toxic loop of all. Some people need to be the wronged one to feel significant. They need you to be the villain so they can be the hero. Your growth threatens that story. Your calmness invalidates their chaos. So they'll create conflict from thin air just to confirm the role they know best, the sufferer. And you can't win with someone who needs you to be wrong to feel right. The accountability gap between partners can be staggering. One person can say cruel, cutting things during an argument, shatter confidence, weaponize insecurities, and later excuse it with, "I was just emotional." But if you respond with even a fraction of that intensity, you're labeled abusive. The person doing the most emotional damage often sees themselves as the biggest victim. It's an upside-down world where the loudest pain wins, not the truest one. I've watched couples destroy each other over nonsense because one person needed to win more than they needed peace. I once had a client whose girlfriend kept a mental file of every mistake he'd ever made. Dates, screenshots, quotes. She'd bring them up in new arguments like evidence in court. He told me, "She doesn't want a relationship. She wants a courtroom where she's always the prosecutor and I'm always guilty." That's not love. That's emotional litigation. Here's the harsh truth most people don't want to hear. Arguments aren't about victory. They're about understanding. If you value being right more than being connected, you'll end up right and alone. If you can't validate someone's emotions without surrendering your truth, you'll never have peace. Connection doesn't come from proving your point. It comes from translating emotion into meaning. But for some, that's impossible by design. There are people who thrive on confusion, who move goalposts mid-conversation, who shift topics faster than you can respond. You start discussing one issue. Suddenly, you're defending your entire personality. It's not an accident. It's control. It's the word salad strategy. Throw 20 accusations at once, overwhelm your opponent, and when they can't respond fast enough, claim moral victory. You can't argue logic in a hurricane. This is the new battlefield of modern relationships. Emotion as a weapon, logic as collateral damage. Men are taught that anger is toxic, that raising your voice is dangerous, that staying too calm is condescending. Meanwhile, women are often told that emotional expression is empowerment, that tears mean authenticity, that passion excuses chaos. One side is trained to regulate, the other is trained to release. The result? One person constantly walking on eggshells, the other smashing them for validation. I remember a client telling me his girlfriend would follow him from room to room during arguments, screaming, blocking the doorway so he couldn't get away. When he finally snapped and yelled, "Just leave me alone for 5 minutes," she called the police and said she felt threatened. The irony? He was the one being cornered. But in the narrative we live in, The calm man who finally raises his voice becomes the villain. That's the ugly truth of emotional warfare. It's not about fairness, it's about framing. And once the story paints you as the threat, logic doesn't stand a chance. You can't out-reason someone who's fighting to protect their narrative, not the relationship. So what's the way out? Stop trying to win? Stop trying to fix chaos with logic. Start setting emotional boundaries like your peace depends on it, because it does. Walk away from circular fights. Don't match emotion with emotion. Don't defend yourself against accusations that were never meant to be resolved. Some battles are traps, not tests. The people who truly want connection don't need you to lose for them to feel safe. They don't weaponize vulnerability or turn emotion into leverage. They meet you halfway. They talk, not perform. They express, not explode. The rest? They're playing emotional dodgeball while you're still setting up a chessboard. If that's the game, the only winning move is to stop playing. So what do you do when every argument feels like emotional warfare? The answer isn't to fight harder. It's to stop playing the wrong game entirely. The smartest men I know have learned to disengage from unproductive conflict. Not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. When you realize that some arguments are just disguised attempts to control, not connect, you stop trying to win them. You state your truth clearly, once. If it turns into manipulation, you step back. If it becomes personal attacks, you leave. If it circles back to the same wound for the 50th time, you go silent. You are not obligated to drown in someone else's emotional storm just because they refuse to come up for air. This has nothing to do with gender wars or superiority. It's about emotional compatibility. Some people communicate through logic. Others communicate through feelings. Neither is wrong, but the mix can be lethal if both sides refuse to learn each other's language. Logic without empathy feels cold. Emotion without reason feels chaotic. Put the two together without understanding, and you get love that constantly hurts itself trying to make sense. Most relationships don't fall apart because people stop loving each other. They fall apart because they can't communicate across that gap. Two good people, running on different emotional software, slowly break down under the weight of misunderstanding. He thinks she's irrational. She thinks he's detached. Both are right. Both are wrong. And both are exhausted. Your job isn't to win arguments or avoid them. It's to recognize which type of conversation you're in. Is this a discussion about reality or an emotional theater piece that doesn't want resolution? If it's logic, stay in it. If it's emotion, translate it. If it's manipulation, leave it. Wisdom is knowing the difference. Because not every battle is worth fighting, and not every fight is even real. Arguing with someone who lives purely in emotion while you live in logic is like playing chess with someone who's throwing dodgeballs at your head. You can't win because you're not even in the same arena. The only way to stop losing is to stop pretending the game is fair. You either change the game or walk off the court. Real strength isn't about out-yelling, out-reasoning, or out-enduring someone. It's about emotional clarity, knowing when to step back instead of stepping in. It's the power to say, I'm not going to engage with chaos without guilt. Real intelligence isn't about being right all the time. It's about being effective, about choosing peace over ego. Real success in relationships isn't about avoiding conflict, but handling it like an adult instead of a wounded child. Sometimes that means saying less. Sometimes it means walking away. Sometimes it means refusing to argue at all. And that's where most people fail. They think walking away means weakness. It doesn't. It means discipline. It means you care more about the relationship than the drama. It means you understand that peace is built by boundaries, not endless debates. You can love someone deeply and still refuse to participate in their emotional chaos. Healthy love doesn't require you to abandon logic or silence emotion. It requires you to merge both without destroying either. It's knowing when to listen, when to speak, and when to stop talking altogether. It's learning that validation isn't surrender. That understanding doesn't mean agreeing. And that sometimes, the most powerful sentence you can say is, "You might be right," followed by silence. Not because you've given up, but because you refuse to lose yourself proving a point. Some arguments are landmines disguised as questions. Do you think she's prettier than me? Would you still love me if I gained weight? Would you remarry if I died? These aren't real questions. They're emotional traps. You can't win because the truth isn't what they want. Reassurance is. The only winning move is to recognize the game and refuse to step on it. Eventually, every couple reaches a crossroads. Keep fighting the same emotional wars or learn a new language. Real relationships don't avoid arguments. They evolve through them. Both people want resolution, not victory. Both people can admit fault without shame. Both people care more about peace than pride. But that kind of maturity is rare because it requires ego death. And most people would rather be right than be loved. If someone constantly turns discussions into explosions, if they twist logic into guilt and weaponize emotion like a performance art, believe what they're showing you. They're not bad, just incompatible with anyone who values clarity. You can't teach emotional maturity to someone who thrives on emotional chaos. You can't build peace with someone who only feels safe in fire. So stop arguing for your sanity. Stop trying to prove your worth to someone committed to misunderstanding you. Start setting boundaries like your mental health depends on it, because it does. Speak your truth once. Walk away when it's twisted. Protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. At the end of the day, relationships don't die from lack of love. They die from fatigue, from the endless repetition of conversations that never resolve, from two people so busy defending themselves that they forget to defend the connection. Love can survive mistakes, but it cannot survive contempt. And contempt is born in the ashes of arguments that never end. So maybe the real sign of strength isn't standing your ground. It's knowing when the ground isn't worth standing on. Maybe being right isn't as important as being peaceful. Maybe the smartest thing you can do in an unwinnable fight is simply refuse to play. Because at the end of the day, peace isn't the prize you win after the argument. It's the reward you get for walking away before it destroys you.